Okay, you guys, welcome to the Katie Black Show. This is my YouTube channel. Today, I'm honored. Today, I have with me
Nick
Nick,
Omana.
Nick Omana, who I connected with this summer because I signed up to do voiceover lessons here in Charlotte with Ground Crew.
Yeah, I've been working with them for 20 years, if you can believe that.
That is wild. Well, for those that don't know, we had some weird, I don't know, trippy technical difficulties. So it'll be kind of a shorter interview because, Zoom likes to kick me off. But I also,
Many a winter in my dad's office, which he had, interestingly enough, back then, a home office, but he worked out of the home most of the time. But he had a little office, and in there he had a reel-to-reel recorder. And my brother and I would go in there, and we would record little radio plays and do sound effects and the voices, and then we'd play back and listen to it and laugh and giggle and have a good time. I never knew then you could actually make a living at doing this. That didn't come to me until many years later. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
like I said, so many directions that I could go. But essentially, at what point in your life did you realize that this could be a career and that you wanted to do it, etc.?
I kind of fell into voiceover unexpectedly. I worked in radio for a very, very brief period of time. I actually attended the KISS broadcast workshop here in Los Angeles in the early 70s. And we had a workshop shift that we had to do, an on-air shift that we would do. And beautiful, setting. It was the Playboy building on Sunset Boulevard in the middle of the Sunset Plaza area. It's elevated, so we had floor to ceiling windows. There was a panoramic view of the LA basin. You could see the planes coming in from the east and landing at LAX, and it was just beautiful. Then you get into real life. I didn't want to leave LA to work my way back to LA, so I started out in a very, very small station just north of Los Angeles, and it was a top 40 station. So I heard the same 7 songs over and over again, all night long. And my room really was basically a little 8 by 10 studio. I don't even think it was 10 feet; it might have been 8 by 8. And
Hmm.
it had 2 record players, 2 turntables, 2 cartridge machines for the commercials, a microphone, a telephone, a clock, and a little window in the door that the only time you ever saw a face in it was when the boss was yelling at you to go see him after your shift. And I got paid all of $25 a shift for that. And it was horrible. I had the midnight to 6 a.m. So 6 hours, I made $25. Yoo-hoo. But I got out almost as fast as I got in.
Really?
And years later, I was out to dinner with a friend of mine who he was a marketing and advertising guy. He actually was my roommate at one point, and I remember he would get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning to go into the office, and he would be at the office. His entry level position was a mailroom job. He said, "I'll take anything." He graduated from USC with a degree in marketing, and he said, "I'll take any job. I don't care." He said, "Well, you got a job in the mailroom." Said, "I'll take it." So he would go in early. He would deliver all the mail to everybody before they even got in the morning. And Mary Wells, who he worked for Wells Rich Green Advertising, which was a huge agency at the time, said, "Who is this guy? I need to meet him." And within 3 months of being there, he was the ad executive for Braniff Airlines, for Jack in the Box, for Max Factor, Bugle Boy Jeans. He just took off like a rocket. And we were out to dinner one evening and said, "So I know you like doing this commercial stuff. Why don't you talk to some of the agents I work with and see how you can get started?" So I did. I called and I spoke with Lee Gilbert, who ended up being my first coach, and Vanessa Gilbert, who was and still is an agent here in Los Angeles, not related at all to each
Hmm.
other. And they both said the same thing: take workshops, get proficient at this, put together a demo. If we hear something we like, we'll talk. And so I said, okay. And I did. And funny enough, I got signed by an agent within about 2 weeks of getting my demo done.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, it was just one of those things that I happen to be in a very unique position because my mentor, Tom Pinto, who took over after Lee gave me my initial foundational background in voiceover, Tom took over as my coach and mentor. And I worked with him at Voice Tracks West, which at the time was called the Sound Studio. And he really was incredibly generous and giving. We basically compete in the same area, and he was basically building me up to be a competitor. But it never stopped him because he knew what he did was, you know, really good,
Hmm.
and he was confident in his abilities. And you can't do everything. There's plenty of work for everybody out there,
Right.
and it's incumbent upon the talent to go out and look for
Oh
it.
my gosh. Well, like my brain is just exploding because, like I said, I have so many things to ask you. And like I said, I'm literally on a clock. But well,
Well,
first,
I'd be more than happy to come back for another segment if you want.
yeah, maybe like plug another episode down the
I
way. But
first got into voiceover, one of the things, and this is something that I always point out to people, I was told, there's only a handful of guys that are actually making a living at this. Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate the heads up. I am one of those people. I'm one of the fingers on that handful. And it's not as hard as you think, and it's not as easy as we make it look.
mhm.
As is always the case. I mean, you just sit there and you watch Tiger Woods at the height of his career. Oh my God, he made it look so easy. And you go, I could do that. And you get out on the course and you know I can't. But when you're good at what you do, it seems effortless. Um, Getting to that point, having the confidence in your abilities, and 99% of what we do is based in our confidence. If you can step up behind the mic, I've gotten paid to be a dog in numerous spots, commercials, TV, animation shows, and things like that. And when I step up behind the mic and they say, okay, here's the script, go ahead. And, I did a thing for Toyota at one point, and they were basing it off of the internet dog, with Misha could say, I love you. So that was kind of the basis of what they're going for. So I read through the script and they said, oh my God, that's great. We love it. We love it. Could you add, just read these other 4 lines? I said, sure. And then I looked at the lines and I said, well, 3 of them will be easy. One of them, just because of the way a dog's snout is formed, it's going to sound like a human trying to sound like a dog. I said, let me show you. So I read the first 3 lines. Said, great, love it. 4th line, I said, oh, we get what you're talking about. Okay. So they paid me. Off I went. Thank you very much. 3 days later, they called me back into the studio. They went back to the office, reworked the script with those notes in mind, and had me come back in and paid me another session fee in what was even easier job because they took the notes that I had, and it was just, but that's the whole thing. Nobody's going to tell me, well, I don't think a dog would sound like that. I am the dog. Don't tell me how I'm going to sound. So
It's
it may
that's
sound a little arrogant,
interesting.
but it's, you have to have that confidence. Instrument to be played. You're the one supposed to be playing the instrument. If I'm in tune and you're not hitting the right notes, that's on you.
Mhm.
But if you're hitting the right notes and I am in tune, we have a wonderful session and everybody's happy.
Now, you've done so many projects. There's no way that I can list them all, but my favorite, and I've told Nick this, is because I just recognized it from my memory, is the E True Hollywood story
Story.
series, specifically The Last Days of Elvis. Um, and I mean, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you did Last Comic Standing, obviously lots of commercials. Is there like, do you have a favorite of like what kind of avenue you like to do or?
Gosh, there are just so many. The wonderful thing is I've had the pleasure of doing something in almost every genre. I've done promos, commercials, animation, audiobooks, live announce, you name it, I've done it. Um, Audiobooks is probably my least favorite because I am mildly dyslexic. And what do I do for a living but read? Okay. Um, but that being said, I've obviously found a way to work around that. Audiobooks, it's much harder to stay that focused for that long. And, although funny enough, I did a book called The Hall, which was the Baseball Hall of Famers for National League Baseball. And the Ford was done by Tom Brokaw, and I did all the pitchers and catchers. And funny enough, if you go to Amazon and look it up there's a Kindle version or an audiobook version of it, the sample they use is my voice.
Oh my goodness.
So it's kind of cool. But it was a great project. But the difference is in that project, I went to a studio and somebody else was engineering. Now the trend with ACX and a bunch of those types of formats is they want the talent to record themselves to edit themselves, to QC the script to make sure everything is right, and
Mhm.
then format it and send it off to them. I, I don't have the patience for that. I think that comes with age too. It's just like, no, done with that. I don't have enough time left on earth to make this worthwhile. So uh, just one of those things. But I think I love the cartoon stuff. I just did something yesterday for a historical society, and I got to play the part of a Supreme Court justice, the fifth Supreme Court justice in the United States, Roger B. Taney. And I don't agree with his ruling, but I spoke the words nonetheless because he did say them, and this is a historical piece. So it was really a lot of fun. They said, "Oh my gosh, your audition was head and shoulders above anybody else," and my only thought was, "Okay, thank you." How bad were the other people submitting? Oh my gosh! I mean, I think I'm good at what I do, but head and shoulders above, it's maybe gilding the lily just a little.
What is your perspective of just because I've studied so many random things of and you even talked a little bit about it in the course that I took, but just doing another take, doing another take, doing another take. Is there any vibes of is there such a
Yeah,
thing or
there is. At one point early on in my career, I booked Bank of America, and they flew me to San Francisco. This is before we had ISDN, Source Connect, and all of that stuff. So they flew me to San Francisco. Who knew there was first class between LA and San Francisco? All 8 seats of United Airlines flight were there. Um, so they flew me to San Francisco. They had a driver waiting for me, drove me over to the studio, Russian Hill Recording, which unfortunately is no longer there. And the director, we had 2 pieces of copy or 2 commercials to do that day, identical copy for both, just different visual images. So I only had to record the spot once, and they were going to slug it into both spots. 14 seconds of copy. 76 takes later, I'm sitting there thinking, what am I not getting? Oh my
Mhm.
God, I'm beating myself up in the booth mentally,
Mhm.
thinking, I'm not delivering what he wants. I don't get this. This has never happened to me. And yeah, it was a big account, but I wasn't nervous about it, but it was just eating me up. So we get to the end of the session. The director pushes the talk back and said, "Nick, great. I think we're all wrapped. I've got a runner coming over with the contracts from the agency. Can I buy you lunch while we're waiting?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. Thank you." And so lunch came. The engineer and the director said, "Why don't you guys go ahead and get started? I'll be up in a minute. I've got to make a couple calls to New York, and then I'll be right up." I said, "Okay." So as we're going upstairs to the break room, the engineer turns around, he looks at me, he goes, "Great job." I go, 76 takes? Great job. He says, "Oh, you don't get it. They normally do triple digits. They're going to have every conceivable read in the can before they release you because they're not going to fly you up for a pickup."
Mhm.
So if the client says, "Do you have one where he says it, blah, 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 blah?" Yeah, go to take 39. You have one where he says, blah, 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 blah? Yeah, take 47. So the director is taking all these copious notes on the takes, and I'm just there giving him every permutation of the read you can get. Had I known that, I wouldn't have beat myself up. Okay, what else do you want?
Right.
How else would you like it done? But not knowing that, and the lesson to take away from that is if you're in a session, until they push that talk back and say, "Nick, you stink. Get out of my booth," you're fine. Because if you see them tearing their hair out on the other side of the glass and you can't hear what's going on, and you're thinking, "Oh my God, he hates me." No. Oh my God, who puts mustard on a tuna sandwich? Like, that's nothing to do with you. So we'll always very quickly go to the default of it's me. I'm not doing something right. Very seldom is it you until they tell you so.
That's good advice for no matter what anyone's doing. What is your perspective of, longtime actors, what have you, coming over into the voiceover world?
I have no problem with that because voice voiceover is voice acting.
Hmm.
The days of the announcers, if you have this big, baritone voice and you can do that, once in a while they'll bring that back just for a nostalgic feel or something just feels right with that mix. But no, when Jeff Bridges was doing Hyundai and Duracell batteries and a couple of other things, I used to listen and just marvel at how he could take something and keep it so real and still get the sell in there. still get his point across with that sense of urgency or that sense of enthusiasm or whatever it was. But it was never a hard sell. It's just right in there. And so I don't begrudge any actor who's a good actor and can apply their skills to voiceover. That just makes us all, it raises the bar for everybody. When they spend tons of money on John Hamm doing voiceover for Mercedes, I think John's a good actor. I think they're directing him completely wrong for that spot. But Mercedes has traditionally not had the right spokesperson. They had John Hamm. Prior to that, it was Joe Mantegna. Prior to that, it was Richard Thomas. It just, they're really good actors. They're really nice voiceover guys. They're really nice guys in general. But it's not Mercedes. Mercedes has always missed the mark as far as I'm concerned. It apparently hasn't really cut into their sales any, but yeah, that's just a personal opinion. Of course, anything out of my mouth is an opinion. Might be informed opinion, but still an opinion.
No, I appreciate it. So a couple more questions, like I said, just because I'm on the clock, what have you. But is there, do you do some kind of regimen before you go in the booth, like a certain drink?
I wake up. No. No, I think a couple of the things that you have to be mindful of is one, you want to get up early enough that you can kind of warm your voice up. I mean, if I've got a session, and I'll get behind the mic any time of the day or night. So if I have an East Coast session and they want to do an 8 a.m., that means I'm behind the mic at 5 a.m., which means I'm up at 4:15 to have time to, unfortunately, I won't be able to drink coffee at that point because coffee, the acids in coffee and caffeine will kind of make your mouth pasty. So you get a lot of mouth noise. Also, if you put cream in your coffee, that's a double whammy. If you put sugar in your coffee, it's a triple whammy. All of those things will cause you to have a pasty mouth. So normally what I'll do is I'll do a tea with lemon and maybe a little honey. And that's about it. Or water. One of the things, water actually works against you. It washes out the natural fluids in your mouth, and then there's no lubricant in your mouth. Apple juice, if you find you are kind of pasty, take a bite of an apple, which we used to have slices of apple in the booth all the time when we'd go to the agency to read our auditions. Or just take a sip of apple juice. And what it will do is, apple juice is actually more the consistency of the natural fluids in your mouth anyway. But the pectin will actually stimulate your salivary glands, which will cause you to re-lubricate your mouth. It'll also make you sound like Sylvester if you're not careful. So but stay away from chocolate, stay away from dairy, stay away from anything that's going to cause phlegm or make your mouth pasty.
What, I mean, and I know this I'm sure is a case by case scenario, but what happens when you like wake up and you feel under the weather? Like, do you still just obviously push through, or what happens? Because, obviously
yes,
on your voice.
There comes a point where whatever the degree of the ailment is, it will prevent you from being able to do that. I actually had a session where I'd done some stuff for Excedrin, and I'd come down with a horrible head cold in the interim. And I told my agent, I said, I can't, I really can't do this job. I can't do this job. And so she said, well, she called and they said, no, it's just one word. We'll get him in. And I said, okay, two things. I don't want to be responsible if anybody gets sick from me being in there because I think I'm still contagious. And, they said, yeah, come on in. And they quickly said, yeah, you're right. We can't. So they paid me for that session and then brought me in a week later to do the actual pickup. And so I got paid 3 times. But I also had a session for a show called Emergency Room. And it was, they had to get this job done because it had to air that week. And I had the flu. And I told them, I said, it's a last minute session. I said, I can muster through it if you want, but I can't be responsible if anybody gets sick. And the only thing I ask is that I need to have a place to lay down between takes. So, because what they would do is they would record my voice and then immediately slug it into the video and make sure everything's synced up and timed. And then they'd get me behind the mic for the next segment. And we'd probably do 7 to 10 segments per show. And so all I did is every time they were done, while they were syncing it up, I was laying on the couch, just trying to conserve my energy.
Well, I understand.
You muster through as best you can, but a hot shower and some decongestants can help. Warm tea, especially with lemon and things like that, will also help. So there are a lot of different things you can do to get through.
I know this might be a rookie question, but I've heard my only comparison is like I remember someone talking in a biography or docu-series or whatever, an E True Hollywood Story kind of thing about Whitney Houston, that someone saw her smoking a cigarette and they're like, "What are you doing?" And was just to compare, is that obviously people in the voiceover community told to obviously not partake in things like that, or cigars, or is that
I
just
used to enjoy a cigar occasionally. I love a good cigar, and I used to smoke a pipe years ago. I do none of those things anymore because, to be honest, it's not worth the risk. Forget what it can do to you professionally. And there's always that, yeah, we want a whiskey and cigarettes type of voice. Well, chances are, if you got a whiskey and cigarette voice, you probably won't be doing any long-term stuff because you'll be dead. But I just, your health is really very
vibe,
important. It's vitally important. And do as I say, not as I do. Exercise.
or even I guess audiobooks if you're telling a story or what have you? Do you ever get I don't know how to say this without sounding woohoo, but like an energy of the person that you're narrating about? Like, do you ever, like I guess again, going back to Elvis, very sad.
Yeah.
Do you get sad?
Um, I actually, the funny thing is, I'd done a series called All the King's Men, and it was a 6 episode series. And when they did the last days of Elvis for each Hollywood Story, the producer said, the director, he said, as soon as I heard your audition, I go, that's the guy. That's who I want. And so as we were working, I said, are you familiar with a series called All the King's Men? He said, oh my God, yeah, I listened to it over and over because I used a lot of it for my research. I said, I did that. He says, oh, no wonder I thought you were the guy I wanted to use. I've been listening to you for weeks. So yeah, I think I would spend time. Well, the Roger B. Taney thing that I just did for the Supreme Court Justice, I went back and I looked at the historical books. I
Mhm.
found the context of his ruling. It had to do with the Dred Scott ruling, and it pretty much led to the start of the Civil War. And so it was one of those things where, to me, I saw his picture, and he had kind of a dour look to him. So in doing the voice, he became very, he was a little older. He was very clipped in how he spoke. He did not have a smile. It was always a scowl. And so that helps to bring to life something, especially with a character. But the more you can learn about the subject that you're going to be doing, the better you're going to be at bringing something to it. I don't know if I'm in tune enough to actually feel something from the subjects that I'm talking about, but I do empathize with a lot of the things. I can understand. I mean, Elvis, for as popular as he was very lonely. It's just but that's what led to the drug use and all of the things that were ultimately, unfortunately, his undoing.
Mhm.
So yeah, you have to, doing a little bit of research and getting in touch with the subject matter is not a bad thing.
Now, would you ever consider like getting in front of the camera, or have you, or has someone?
You see what I look like? Come on. No. No, I did on camera. My daughter is now 34 years old. And 33 years ago, I got out of on camera. She was a year old. I was spending time going all over God's green acre and for auditions. And it was one Friday afternoon. I had 3 auditions, all on different sides of town. First one was here, second one was there, third one was here. And I'm in my car going to the third one at about 3:30 on a Friday afternoon in LA traffic, which was so fun. And of course,
Mhm.
the first one was casual, wear. The second one was beach attire. And the third one was a 3-piece suit. I'm sorry, can you not imagine me dressed as that? I have to wear so I'm sitting there pulling on the pants over my shorts from the previous audition of my suit. I'm putting on a tie, and it's like, this is stupid. I'm done. And of course, what do I do? But I book the national on the third audition. So it's like, okay. Then I kind of told my agent, look, just only major regionals and national spots. I'm not going to do local stuff anymore. It's just too time consuming. It's getting in the way of my doing voiceover.
Mhm.
And so at one point, I finally just said, I'm done, and just focused on voiceover. And it's been my source of my income and my living for the past 35 years. So um, I don't miss on camera at all. Plus, you have to memorize, and I'm no good at that.
It's a different world.
Yeah.
But was wondering, just kind of like how I recognized you from Eat Your Hollywood Story, do you have people be like, oh, are you the voice in this? Or is it more of like, you sound familiar?
There are times, often not so much in day-to-day interactions, because this isn't how I sound when I'm on mic working the microphone. Um, Sometimes little bits will sneak in that you can hear, but for the most part, that hasn't happened. When people hear me on spot or in the studio when they're working with me, you go, I know I've heard that voice before. You go, yeah, that's also what helps me get jobs, is there's a familiarity to it. So people already hear what they want to hear based on what they've heard.
Mm-hmm.
And so that helps. I've booked a lot. The biggest source of income for me is return business. Immediately behind that is bookings off my demo. And then very far behind that is auditions. If you're booking one out of every 30 or 40 auditions, that is really good. So if you're only reading 2 or 3 times a week, you might get a job every 10 weeks. You're not going to be able to make a living on that. But if you're reading, like yesterday, I had 5 auditions. Friday, I had 6. So, within a week's period, I'll have 30 to 40, so I'm getting a job on a regular basis. And then again, I ended up booking off my demo. I've been doing the voiceovers for NASCAR 75, which is 75th anniversary of NASCAR. I didn't even read for it, but it's 30 to 40 videos. And, I'll take that anytime.
Yeah,
And they're
absolutely.
really nice people to work with on top of it. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. So yeah, their voice just, and again, you can't be everything to everybody. So don't try to be. All you're
Mhm.
going to do is dilute yourself to the point where you're not going to get any work.
That's good advice as well. Well, before we wrap it up, do you want to give like a shout out to your website or social media or anything if anyone wants to?
Oh, if you want to, you can follow me at Nick Omana on Instagram, Facebook. I'm definitely on there. I try to post things. Do this. You have to commit to doing it every day in some way, shape, or form. So I would say definitely find time to set aside time to read copy, call people about, building relationships. Don't look for work. Offer to help. What are you working on that I can help you with? Great. Let me know. Not, do you have any work? No, not right now. But if you plant that seed, and that's how I got my DoD job, and we're going in October. We started 27th year working together, and it's been a great source of income for me over the years. And they just sent me an email today. We got another gig coming down the line, and it's this is all relationship building. So whatever you can do to start building those relationships, do them now. Build the relationships with coaches, with producers, with clients. I love other voiceover talent. They're really wonderful and they're great to hang with and talk with. I've never gotten a job from another voiceover talent. So the bulk of my time, people always say, we don't ever see you at these conferences. We don't see you doing this. Yeah, no, I love and respect you, but I have other things I'm doing, and I've got some really good friends in the voiceover community, but, yeah, when we get together, we don't talk about voiceover. We get together because we want to spend
Yeah.
time kind of like this. So yeah, I don't mind that at all. That's fun.
Hey, awesome. Well, Nick, that's it. Minus all our weird poltergeisty things.
Well, Zoom has a tendency to update things and don't ask you whether you want them to or not. And
Right.
then you come in and you go, I have no idea what I'm looking at. Let me see what I can do
Mhm.
here. And we got it figured out for
Hey,
now.
cut off. I really appreciate you coming on and wanting to do this.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Katie. And anytime, more than happy to come back and explore more
Yes,
things
I
and
would
talk
love
about
that.
more stuff.
I would love that. All
Excellent.
right, Nicovina, thank you so
You're
much.
so welcome.
I'll be in
And
touch.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank
Stay
you so
well and
much.
stay creative.
Thank you. Thank you. You as well. See ya.
Thanks.
What up?